we now rank 11th or 12th in the proportion of college graduates. Well, we can't win in an information society, in a global, technologically wired economy, unless we're winning that battle to make sure our kids can compete. So what we've said is we're going to put more money into higher education and through K through 12, but here's the catch. The money is only going to go to those communities that are serious about reforming their education system so they work well. Because education's not just a matter of putting more money into it. You also have to make sure that we've got the best teachers, that we've got accountability, that the way we're designing our schools help our kids actually succeed over the long term, especially in areas of math and science where we're lagging even further behind than we were a generation ago. So those are the things that we've been trying to do over the last 19 months. Now, as I said before, the economy is growing, but it's not growing as fast as we would like. So over the last week, I've put forward a few more things that I think can really make a difference. Number one, instead of giving tax breaks to companies that are investing overseas, which our tax code does right now, what I've said is let's close those tax loopholes and let's provide tax breaks to companies that are investing in research and development here in the United States. That's a smart thing to do. We want to incentivize businesses who actually are making profits right now to say we should go ahead and take a chance and let's invest in that next new thing. Second is what I've proposed is that we allow companies to write off essentially their new investments early if they make those investments here in 2011. So essentially accelerating the depreciation that they can take on their taxes to encourage them to front load making investments now. The third thing that we've proposed, and this is actually pending right now in the Senate, the United States Senate, because Jerry and Jim have already voted on it, is a small business package that would eliminate capital gains taxes for small businesses, would help small businesses obtain loans. It is a common sense bill that traditionally would have garnered a lot of bipartisan support, but we're in the political silly season right now, so it's been blocked up by the Senate Republicans for the last month and a half, 2 months. Small businesses are still having trouble getting loans, and what we want to do, even though we've already given them 8 different tax breaks, is we want to say we're going to give you just a little bit more incentive, because if we can get small businesses growing and investing and opening their doors and hiring new workers, that's probably going to be the area where we can make the most progress over the next year in terms of accelerating employment and reducing the unemployment rate. So these are all steps that we're taking right now to try to move the economy forward. Now, I have never been more confident about the future of our economy if we stay on track and we deal with some of these long-standing problems that we hadn't dealt with for decades. If we make investments and improve our education system, if we make investments in research and development, if we make investments in things like clean energy, so that we've got an energy policy that's not just tied to importing oil from the Middle East, but instead start figuring out how can we develop our homegrown industries. If we have a tax system that is fair and helps the middle class, and that also attends to our long-term deficit problems, if we regulate, but not with a heavy hand, just regulate enough to make sure that we don't have a collapse of the financial system and consumers aren't taken advantage of and health insurance companies are responsive to ordinary families, if we do those things, there's no reason why we can't succeed. And I've traveled all around the world and I've looked at all the economic data. If you had a choice of which country you'd want to be, you still want to be the United States of America. We still have a huge competitive edge, and we've got the best workers in the world. And we've got the most dynamic economy in the world. We've got the best universities, the best entrepreneurs in the world. But we've got to tackle these long-standing problems that have been getting in the way of progress, and we've got to do it now. We can't wait another 20 years or another 30 years because other countries are catching up. That's what we've been trying to do over the last 2 years. Now, some of these things, I got to admit, are hard. They cause great consternation. When we tried to get some common sense rules in the financial sector, for example, that means billions of dollars that were going to profits to some of the banks are not going to be going there because you're getting a better deal on your credit card, and they're not happy about it. So that ends up creating a lot of drama on Capitol Hill. And it means that we've had some very contentious debates. But I just want to close by saying this. Ultimately, when I get out of Washington and I start talking to families like yours, what I'm struck by is not how divided the country is, but I'm actually struck by how basically people have common values, common concerns, and common hopes. They want to be able to find a job that pays a decent wage, give their family and their children in particular a bright future, be able to retire with some dignity and respect, not get bankrupt when they get sick. And that cuts across region, it cuts across racial lines, it cuts across religious or ethnic lines. People, there's a core set of American values that I think people across the country respond to. And what I want to do is make sure that the government is on the side of those values of responsibility and hard work and thinking about future generations and not just thinking about the next election. And I think we've made progress, but we've got more progress to make. So with that, I thank you all for being here. And what I want to do is I just want to answer questions. And I know folks in the sun are hot, so I'm going to stand in the sun to make sure that you know that I feel your pain as a... Absolutely. I wouldn't mind having that hat, though. That's helpful. I should have thought ahead. All right. Anybody want to... John, go ahead. Yeah. Here, hold on a second. I'll give you a mic. So, we've got one.
Mr. President, thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it. Yeah. It's a great opportunity. I'm an engineer, and you talked a lot about R&D and infrastructure, and I love every dollar spent on that, right, by definition. I'm also a paraplegic, and I have a great interest in stem cell research and how it gets furthered. So how do we get this issue to be a scientific issue instead of a political issue?
Well, John, as you know, I have been a huge supporter of stem cell research for a very long time. When I came into office, we said that what's going to govern our decision-making here is sound science. There are legitimate ethical issues involved in all this, the biotech industry, and those are going to continue as time goes on. I mean, there's some very tricky questions, and we've got to make sure that our values and our ethical standards are incorporated in everything we do, but we've also got to make sure that we're making decisions not based on ideology, but based on what the science says. Now, the executive order that I signed would say that we are not going to create embryos to destroy for scientific research. We're not going to do that. On the other hand, when you've got a whole bunch of embryos that were created because families were trying to, or couples were trying to start a family, and through in vitro fertilization, they're frozen in some canister somewhere and are going to be discarded anyway, then it makes sense for us to take those that are going to be destroyed and use them to advance our scientific knowledge to see if at some point we can start making huge progress on a whole set of issues. Obviously, spinal cord injuries are an example, but Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, juvenile diabetes. There's not a single family here who has not in some way been touched by a disease that could end up benefiting from the research that's done on stem cells.